And first of all, we'll focus on gold here. It's been an interesting few days here for those of you who trade gold. So essentially what we saw off the back of the first round of the French presidential election results, we saw a gap down on the open for gold, quite a significant gap back down to 1,264 US dollars per ounce, as we saw majority of candidates endorsed Emmanuel Macron. He won the first round of the French presidential election. And we've seen really a risk-on mood take hold of the global markets over the course of this week. We've seen equities breaking out to the upside. We've seen the S&P 500, the Dow Jones, the NASDAQ, number of indices breaking out. And we'll have a look at that very shortly as well. And overall, we've seen some weakness in gold this week, which we've capitalized on. And the gap on the open is interesting because often this can be the case, not always, of course, but often on gold in particular. Once it gaps on the market, particularly a gap down like we saw off the Sunday open, often we do expect that gap to fill to a certain degree. And we did see that off the open on Sunday. We gapped down to 1,265 US dollars. It retraced all the way up to 1,277, but it wasn't really able to continue that momentum higher. And in fact, it started to roll over. If we have a look at gold on the weekly chart, you'll see the gap lower, and where this week actually could be the first week going back to March here, where we actually were going to close below the previous week's low potentially here and create a lower low on the weekly as well. So we can see overall gold is rolling over at the moment, starting to break down in price. We saw a retracement into the close yesterday, again off the back of long-awaited news regarding the tax plan, which didn't really inspire investors too much. We saw a bit of a retracement on the S&P 500. We saw a pullback on certainly stocks and also the Dow Jones as well, resulting in essentially a pullback from a major zone of resistance here for the Dow and also the S&P, which we can just bring out over to the chart at the moment. Now, this is going to be very interesting today to see how this plays out, because we're so close now on the S&P 500 to potentially breaking out now from 2,400 zone. We came very close to it yesterday, didn't quite get up there, saw a little bit of profit taking yesterday, and we're seeing the markets a little bit muted, but we're only really starting to get going at the beginning of the US session now. Now, I would suggest at the moment, gold certainly looks like we could get more downside, although today will be an important day for gold. The level I'm looking at right now for gold is the potential to take out 1,260 US dollars per ounce. That is the line in the sand at the moment. Overall, we've been creating lower highs here. We've been also creating lower lows over the last week since we gapped on the open. We've seen a rollover here since we spiked to the high just under 1,300, which is at 1,295 US dollars per ounce. So we have seen some weakness certainly over the course of this week. We rallied into the close yesterday, didn't see much follow through over the Asia Pacific session. So far today, we've been breaking down. We've seen a bit of a pullback in prices here for gold, and it's hovering around 1,265 US dollars. I'll just show you this because it's a raw chart at the moment. It can just give you a little bit of a cleaner view of what is happening currently for gold. So what I'm looking at, the potential, obviously it could still go either way here. If gold was to manage to break out above yesterday's high here and essentially break and close back above 1,272 US dollars per ounce, it does have the potential to continue this momentum higher, and you could argue that's a potential bull flag formation, and then we're just going to get a continuation pattern here to the upside. However, if the weakness continues, and especially if we can take out 1,260 US dollars per ounce here on gold, that is important zone. It's the level which has been tested 3 times now, that zone, over the last 3 days, and at the moment it's holding. But if it was to break down lower, if we were to see a breach and close below 1,260, I then see the door opening here for gold, taking it down to 1,250, and below that 1,240 within that zone. So I'm waiting for a resolution today to see which way gold is going to go. At the moment it's a bit weak right now. Bears do have control of gold. Currently I'm looking at short-term downside here, and then the potential to reverse position again as we go into next week. So there's a lot happening now over the current week. So next Wednesday, we have the FOMC statement. And then on Friday, we have non-farm payrolls. And then the following Sunday, we have the French elections. So we can definitely expect some volatility and opportunities off the back of a lot of news which is coming out next week. Now, I think what we all saw and observed, any of you who were watching or trading off the French election, the first round at the weekend, would have noted the big gaps that we got on the open. Euro certainly gap up of 200 points, big gap down for gold, big gap up for S&P 500. So that was just the first round of the election. So the second round could cause, again, very likely the same sort of volatility and opportunities as well. Those big gaps on the open do create often some really good trading opportunities right off the open. So the French elections on Sunday, the 7th of May, definitely, of course, I'm sure all of you have got that in your diary already, but just be aware that off the actual open, we can see some really lucrative trading opportunities. And that could be a point where, of course, we'll look to potentially reposition ourselves on several trades. So at the moment, the jury's out here on gold as to which way it's going to go. It's been breaking down over the last week or so. It's not too significantly oversold. It is getting a little bit oversold, but it could still break down lower at this point. And right now, we're sort of hovering around the 1265 zone.